Hello everyone, VegasVic1965, and I'm here with my son Noah on Bedrock. Hey Noah.
Hi.
This week's video is going to be a troubleshooting guide for the Bedrock Iron Golem farm. A majority, I would say, I'd venture to say about 90 to 95% of the people that have built the iron farm that I have and that you see behind me is working excellent. But there were a few people that ran into some problems, and so I wanted to address these issues that they've had. I addressed them in the comment section of the video itself, but I want to make sure that I did something like this, so anybody else who has trouble in the future can revert to this guide to hopefully help them answer those questions and get those problems fixed. So, without further ado,
Let's find out.
okay, the first tip I want to talk about is going to be the village boundary itself. Now, you've got a villager that's attached to the bell, the workstation, the beds within that village, and you want to make sure that you're far enough away so that any villagers you bring away from this village, like for example, you're going to use a breeder to breed up and set those extra villagers into your iron golem farm, you don't want them still attached to one of the items, one of the points of interest within this village. This is a decent village because it's got a pillager tower over there, so if anybody wants to see, just let me know down in the comments. I'll be happy to give it to you. You can see my coordinates from the video up top left. But the villagers that you bring out of here that are generated from the game itself are going to be stuck with whatever profession they have, and if you bring them out there to the iron farm, they may still be attached to something within this village boundary. If it's the bell, the workstation, or a bed. Now that's if it's within the 48 block range. So that's why in my video I mentioned that you really need to get these villagers away from anywhere any other villager boundary within 64 blocks, and you should be safe. Now my suggestion would be, as you're obviously going to have to grab a couple villagers from a village to do this breeder somewhere near your iron farm or somewhere else other than in the village boundary. And those offspring that you're going to have, those villagers that you get as a result, will be excellent candidates for your iron golem farm. Just make sure that your distance is at least 64 blocks away from any other village, or you'll find that those villagers, if you use the ones within the village, are still possibly going to be attached to one of the points of interest within that village. So that's one that people are running into. You've got to be far enough away. Okay, so the next troubleshooting tip that I want to mention is, if you watched my video on the iron golem farm, you'll notice that I set up two pods opposite end of each other. But if you're having trouble with the villagers in that chunk that are using the workstations from the opposite pod and they're trying to link with those, then an easy fix for that is to have all of your workstations, and these dirt blocks indicate whatever workstation that you're using, and you can set up all 20 workstations right here. So again, you've got your 2 block wide gap, 2 blocks high, and all of your workstations are here on the back or the front. It really doesn't matter, but at least then any villagers that need to change their workstation can do so as often as they like, without the fear of not having worked the day before. Because again, in my video, you'll notice that I mentioned they must be worked, 75% of them must have worked the day before that. So just make sure that you've got your area covered with 3 blocks of airspace above in case a lightning strike hits. You don't want a bunch of them turning into witches and ruining your farm. Okay, the next tip would be, someone mentioned it before, and this is a very good block to use, and that is a leaf block, because that is unspawnable. So if you notice in my video, I use slabs, but Noah is using leaves, and leaves are another great block in case you don't want to use slabs to make it unspawnable area. Okay, troubleshooting tip number 4. One of the things you do not want to set down anywhere near your farm unless it happens to be with or for the villagers themselves are these blocks here. The workstations, any of the workstations. I know a lot of us like to use the stone cutter to create the blocks that we're going to use, for example, for the farm itself. But if you set that down and your villagers are there, they may try to pick up on that workstation. And if they do, that may mess up the farm. Another thing is, and it shouldn't be there, you shouldn't have any bells and a bed. And we're all guilty of this because when nighttime comes, we probably want to sleep to get to the day, especially if we're playing single player or we have a couple of people that are building the farm. So you set the beds down on the ground by the farm, and then you sleep through the night, and one of the villagers picks that up, and it also could mess up your farm. There's a lot of these things, the workstations, any of the points of interest you definitely do not want to have placed down by the farm that could potentially mess something up. So be very wary of it, be very careful of that, and don't set any of these down there while the farm is ready, up and running. Okay, the next tip, or troubleshooting tip number 5 I want to mention to you is while you're building this farm, if you remember if you watch my video, you'll notice I set the beds down first, and then I brought the villagers in. If you do it the other way, there is a potential or possibility that while you're building this farm, if you put the villagers in there first, that you'll start getting spawns in there once you reach that 20 bed. And if your water streams aren't ready, it's a very good possibility that your iron golems can get away. And if they get away from the farm, then the villagers will still count that within the 32 block radius of that villager. So make sure that you put the beds in first, and then put the workstations, build your pods, put the villagers in there. If you do it that way and you have everything ready, then when you finally get your 20th villager and it links up to the beds, that everything should be working just fine. And if it doesn't for some reason, this troubleshooting tip, what I suggest is that you go ahead and break the beds and reset them back down. Just be extremely careful. You want to make sure that you at least go in there and set yourself a couple of temporary blocks in that where the drop chute is, so you don't mess anything up and have the lava turn into obsidian. Same thing with the villager workstations. If for some reason you're getting angry particles, and that happens from time to time, but like I say, 75% of them must have worked the day before. So if one drops their workstation and it doesn't work out and they try to pick one up on the other side, you'll get an angry particle because they can't reach that workstation, and they will eventually drop it and then try and pick one up over here. So if you're running into that, like I mentioned earlier, build a single pod on the one side with all 20 workstations and your villagers, and that should fix that. If not, then you can also break these workstations and replace them back down. But you want to make sure that these guys don't get out. So if you're going to break one of these workstations, something like this is what you're going to want to put over there so they cannot get to it. And let me go ahead and do that for you. I'll give you an example of that. We break this workstation. Now he's upset because I took his workstation away, but he can't climb up that block and get out because I put a block over top. So we set that back down again. He will probably more than likely link back up with that one or try to link up with one on the other side. They tend to drop their workstations from time to time. So if that's the case, by making a single pod on one side should work out just fine. But remember, either breaking the beds and resetting them back down, or breaking the workstations and resetting them back down should alleviate that problem and get your iron farm up and working again. Another very important tip that I mentioned before, and that was the number of cats. If you get 10 cats, your iron golem farm will stop working. And that also includes if while you're building the farm and you put the villagers in first and then you start building the farm and set the beds down later, once it becomes active, if that farm is not up and running and a cat gets away, the villagers will still consider that cat a valid cat within the village. And like I said, once you get to 10, it's game over. You'll end up losing it. To alleviate that, you can break the beds, invalidate the village, and reset all the beds back down. But you want to make sure that you build your farm and water streams first, and then get your villagers in there. That way, if any cats come down through here, you'll be just fine. Most of them should be taken care of. If not, then if you noticed in the video, I set myself up with a little slab just in case one does happen to get through and hangs out. Again, it's 10, so I doubt you're really going to get that many cats that are going to make it through there. It's going to take an awful long time, especially with the percentages of the time that the cats are going to die through the lava anyway. And I have another fix for that. If you want to make that change, it's not difficult to make, but it's going to require a teeny bit more materials. Okay, next troubleshooting tip is if for some reason you're getting the cats down in there and you're really tired of it and you feel like you want to build this, you don't have to. I've got that trapdoor and the slab in the back as you've seen earlier and also in the video, but if you really want to get snazzy and fix this up, you can always set down a magma block with a hopper minecart underneath and a hopper into that chest below. As you can see, what'll happen back here is when the cat does spawn in there and drops down through the lava, the magma block will take care of the cat, and as he bounces up, he'll hit the lava, so he'll end up dying. Now to build that, if you want to build that extension, and we're going to be coming out from one side. So this is where the chest goes, to give you a visual. The chest is going to go like it normally would, only 2 blocks down from where it was here. So go 2 blocks down there, and on this side you can see I've gone out 2 blocks and gone over 6. Same thing with this other corner over here. You want to come out 2 blocks and then over 6. We're going to be dropping water into the spot right here, which will flow across the blocks here and land on top of that magma block. So let's build that. If you want to build something like this, you have your chest that we set down first. You'll come in behind the chest. You'll place 1 hopper in there, and you can backfill this now. And then you're going to want to set down 1 rail. Make sure you crouch. You're going to drop in your hopper minecart, and then you're going to want to get rid of that rail, just like that. And you can backfill this in again if you like. And on top of this, you're going to come right over here and drop your magma block there, and you'll backfill the back end like that. And then of course put your glass in the front. And of course your lava, as you can see over there. So now that magma block, along with the water that we're going to drop in this spot right there, we'll have all that water flowing right on top of the magma block. So if any cats happen to get through and you don't want to deal with the trapdoor in the slab, then you can build it like this with the hopper minecart on top, right underneath the magma block, and you'll end up getting all of your string. As you can see, we tried that a little earlier, and if we drop a cat in there now, as he falls through the lava trap, he'll end up hitting the magma block and he'll eventually die. That's just another method. I'm not going to build it, but someone did ask me about that, so I went ahead and built this design in case you wanted to do something simple to where you can access your items right down here in the chest below. Okay, the next tip I'm going to offer you came from a guy by the name of Brown Sugar 619. He had done this and noticed that he got a little bit of an increase in the iron production, and that was to add that zombie there. Now that's supposedly exclusive to Java. So I wouldn't have thought of actually adding this in here, but I actually did run some tests, and I noticed that on one of my tests I got for 1 hour 427 iron blocks or iron ingots by having a zombie there. Now, as I mentioned, this is not something that is set up for Bedrock. It's an exclusively set up for the Java version. But if you would like to try this, you can set yourself a zombie in there. You want to make sure that he has clear view of these villagers, and they are going to react to the zombie being there in the first place. But again, this is something you can test yourself if you want to add this. Brown Sugar 19 ran his testing, and he seemed to have gotten a little bit more iron. And in my test, I did have one example of where he got more than I should have gotten. So it is a possibility that this is a bug that is currently working for Bedrock, and they may change it in the future. But if you want to add this to your iron farm, feel free to give it a try to see if perhaps you happen to get an increased drop rate on the iron ingots. Now, Noah is going to be my assistant and help me get the zombie up in there. I'm going to show you how to do it if you'd like to give that a try. Okay, now this one, Noah has a zombie following him. We'll show you how to get that up there if you want to place a zombie in your iron farm. Built himself a staircase that we're eventually going to remove. You want to have yourself a 2-block space here because the zombie itself can sometimes block the area or not enable you to be able to put the glass block in behind it. And we definitely make sure that we put a space above, a block above, so he does not burn up. A slab will work out just fine. So he's going to follow him up here. You got a 1-block space there he can jump up on. Now he's fixed it up to where the zombie can't get in. He blocks him off in the back, and now you got yourself a trap zombie that you can use for your iron farm. Okay, the next troubleshooting tip I want to go over is troubleshooting tip number 9. If you have gone with the 2 pods like I did in my video, and you've set them one on each opposite end of each other, another way that you can help prevent the problem with workstations would be to set one set of workstations on one side and a different set on the other side. So you see I have barrels on one side, and you could set something like a cartography table or a Fletcher's table on the other side for the other 10 villagers. The thing you definitely want to make sure you do, and this is very important, if you do this step, you will need to trade these guys. So you may want to pick workstations that are very, very easy to get the materials that you need to trade to lock them in, because they will need to be locked in so they don't try and change their profession. Because if they have not already been traded with, then they are considered a novice, and they will swap workstations as a novice often until you trade with them to lock them into that profession. So again, if you choose the option of going with the 2 different pods on each side, then you can use one set of workstations on one side, one on the other. Just make sure that you trade with each and every one of those villagers so they only have the profession for the workstation in the pod that they are in. Okay, the next troubleshooting tip we wanted to go over with came from a commenter in the Bedrock Iron Golem Farm video that I have. His name was Algoin. He asked about breeding the villagers right in the pods themselves, which is a very good possibility. You can do this. So in this example, I only have 10 workstations set up with a few villagers, but if you wanted to do the single pod with 20 villagers, it will be easier to do it that way, merely because you can throw as much bread or carrots or potatoes at these guys, and they will only breed to the number of beds that are available. If you're going to do 2 pods, you need to be extremely careful that you don't overbreed. Well, I guess you could overbreed on one side. It really doesn't matter. But if you only wanted 10. Now, the example here is this would be our iron farm. I didn't build the whole thing out, but we have our pod set up with 10. We have our 20 beds. And if we start tossing, like I said, I like to use bread because you only need 3 per villager. So if I toss in some bread to these guys, they are going to, of course, need to breed more villagers because we have 20 beds there and there's only 3 villagers in there. So once they're willing to breed, they'll start breeding more villagers into this pod, and then you'll fill up your 10. Once you get to 10, again, 3 per villager, and they will go ahead and breed another villager. And once that was bred, once you have one, then you can toss some more. But if you make the single pod all the way across, you can toss as much bread at these guys as you want, and they will only breed to the number of villagers available for the number of beds that you have, which in our case for our farm is only 20 beds. So in this case, like I said, I did just one with the 10. But Algoin, your idea of just breeding them right inside the villager pods themselves will work out just fine. They got to have the room. So you want to make sure that if you're going to bring some villagers in, if you bring them from another village, you may want to breed a couple new ones first and bring those to the farm. You can use whatever method you like. I like to use a minecart, but you can use a boat. And then get your 2 villagers up in there, and then have your everything set up that the way you want it, and start tossing them down some food. Again, I said you can use carrots, you can use potatoes. I like to use bread because bread only doesn't take up a whole lot of space, and you only need 3 per villager. So 6 bread total. Toss 3 at each. They'll breed, and then of course you can keep breeding them. If you're using the single one, you can toss as much bread as you want. If you're using one with 10 villagers on each side, just remember and be cautious of how much bread and how many villagers you had while you're breeding. And that's a good way. Algoin, thank you very much. It is a great way to get your villagers populated into those pods themselves. The only downfall is you got to wait 20 minutes for these guys once they pop out to grow into adults and accept a workstation. And again, it just takes a little bit longer, but that is a way to populate those villager pods for your iron farm. Okay, that's going to do it for me and Noah for the troubleshooting tips for your Bedrock Iron Golem farm. If you watched my video and you're looking for more assistance, hopefully you'll catch this video and it'll help you in your Minecraft world, your Bedrock Minecraft world, to assist you in getting your Iron Golem farm producing plenty of iron for you. If you like this video, click that like button. If you want to subscribe for past and future videos from me and also Noah, who occasionally comes in with me, click that subscribe button. It really helps me and Noah and lets us know that we're providing great content for you guys. If you have any questions, you can always leave us a comment down below in the comments. I always answer my comments. And thank you again, Brown Sugar 619, for your idea on the zombie, adding it in there. Again, it's not supposed to be a mechanic for Bedrock. It's supposed to be for Java, but it does seem like it is working. And Algoin, great idea also for the breeding the villagers right in the pods themselves. Again, guys, thank you very much for watching, and until next week's video, Noah, bye-bye. Bye.